So a very warm welcome, everyone. I'm Cormac Loughran, and I'm co-chair of the IPA New Business and Marketing Group. We're absolutely thrilled and honoured tonight to have Sir John Hegarty in the room. And
thank you, Cormac. That was very good.
Sorry, John. I thought it was like a bit Sir Alan. I don't know if you want to use that. Yeah. And to keep John on the straight and narrow, we have author, broadcaster, journalist, and all-round cultural savant Sam Delaney. So John won't go too far off piste. So the plan tonight really is for John to talk about pitching. Obviously, he'll talk about other things. He'll talk about new business, his business, organic business, wherever new business comes from. But it's very clear, John brings significant gravitas to the room, 45 years of wisdom, which he's going to share with us tonight, earned at the sharp end of the industry, 5 decades. Incredible stuff. There's a few things, actually. Normally we'd say switch your mobile phones off. Please switch the ringer off. But we want you to tweet. And when you tweet, can you use the hashtag the good pitch, which is an initiative that myself and the group, the IPA New Business and Marketing Group, are using working with ISBA at the moment. That'd be really helpful. Thank you for that. On a personal level, I was very fortunate as a young boy growing up in this industry to work at BBH with John and the team in the early 90s. And I got to say, it was really, truly a career-defining moment for me. I worked in the media planning of a small campaign called Boddington's. And what I saw around me was how brilliantly John and Nigel turned what we often view as negatives in the industry of dissension, dissatisfaction, and disruption into something very positive, something incredibly game-changing. They actually celebrated that kind of behavior, and it made for an amazing place to work, a real culture of excellence. And really, that attitude really works commercially. There's no doubt it works commercially. You can see how John's business model is scaled into New York, Singapore, Shanghai, Sao Paulo, Mumbai. Dominance at the Cannes Awards, D&AD Awards, campaign big awards, all in the recent years. And currently, BBH being Campaign Agency of the Year with Cannes, or with Campaign as well. Quite amazing. And also at the top of it all, John's been instrumental in the music industry as well, with 9 number ones, I think, off the back of their commercials as well, which is absolutely amazing. Our very own Simon Cowell. Now, I know there's a lot of new business people in the room, and I know...
I can't believe that.
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
And John doesn't want to share a secret, so we're going to have to stop here. And I think you all love a stat. So when I was doing some research on John, I looked at many things. The one thing I looked at was the conversion rate of BBH over the last 15 years. It's absolutely remarkable. 52% of the pitches they've entered, they have won. And actually, there's only one agency, John, this is a little stat I was going to tease you with, that actually has done better. Unfortunately, that agency is no longer with us. But I think John would be very happy to know who that agency is. John, do you know who that agency is?
Hal Henry?
Not quite. Nearly. And you mentioned in your book a lot. You talk about CDP.
CDP, well.
53%. So 53%. They pipped BBH by a point. But it says much about the longevity of John and the business, really, that they're still going strong, still winning business. So without any further ado, Sam.
Thank you, Cormac. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming, and thank you, John, for coming and speaking to me and everyone. It's very exciting to be speaking about pitching. It's a subject that I always find very entertaining to hear about. Although, as you were just saying beforehand, it seems strange to me, as a sort of a semi-detached member of your industry, that someone would come along and tell everyone else in the industry their secrets of how to pitch.
Well, no, I'm not.
You're going to shrink down your 52% success rate here. Yeah. So all I'm saying to everyone is, take everything he says tonight with a pinch of salt, because
I could really lead you all astray, couldn't I? Just kind of get that success rate up. Actually, last year it was 80%, so wow. I got some stats out. We had some bad years and some good years, but last year was 80%.
Oh well, perfect time to talk to you then. You're on a roll.
They keep me out of it now, actually.
And yet a strange one, because of course the legend has it, or the legend of yore has it, is that BBH don't do pitches as such. Or at least they didn't do pitches. Well,
when we started, we sort of, I mean, this is a big question actually in a way, and it's a very important question because it first of all, it broaches this whole question of that agencies are never brands. Seems odd to me that we spend our life advising clients to be a brand, behave like a brand, and agencies are themselves not brands. They will pitch for anything. They will work with anybody. They don't have a definite point of view. And they're the worst brands in the world, which is probably why clients actually probably have quite a low opinion of us. So the first thing we wanted to do is to establish a point of view as a brand. And we were talking about what we should do, and it was Nigel who said, I think, because we want to be sort of about creativity, we should refuse to do speculative creative pitches when we are asked to pitch. And of course I thought he'd gone barking mad. Mm-hmm. And we sort of think, let's think about this for a moment, Nigel. And we talked it through and we established it, and we actually did do that as a sort of a way of talking about BBH. And the logic really was to say, if you really valued the creative work, you wouldn't give it away in 4 weeks. And actually, in a way, most clients, what was wrong with them is their strategy was wrong. The strategic direction was wrong. You had to get that right, and once you'd got that right, you could then move on to doing the creative work. And when we announced this, people kind of went, and it was very strange in our industry, when you sort of point out you're going to be different, people think you're being arrogant, and they accuse us. So you can go back and look at all the editorial about us, BBH being arrogant, and we weren't. We were just trying to have a point of view. And what was brilliant about it is people said it won't last. Then it did last, and people said, well, you won't be able to get big clients, and then we got big clients. And John Bartle always used to tell this lovely story. We'd been asked to pitch for a particular client. This is about 6 years after we were going, and the shortlist was announced, and the client was called by one of the other agencies pitching and was told, I see that your shortlist, and on the shortlist is BBH. This is very unfair. And this client said, well, why? Well, they won't be presenting creative work. And the client said, well, I haven't asked you to present creative work. I've just asked you to pitch for our business. But it had turned from being seen as a kind of no-hope proposition to being now an advantage. But the point about that is, I mean, the most important point I can probably make this evening is be a brand. And we're not. And it's, Nigel, my partner, says it's so everybody's on Oxford Street. Nobody's in, Bond Street, nobody's in New Bond Street, nobody's, in Mayfair, and we spend our lives trying to be advisors on brands, and we don't do it. And we pitch for anything, If it walks, we'll pitch for it, and it's and it's ridiculous. And that's probably, I mean, actually one of the reasons why our pitch rate is high is because we self-select. All brands self-select. I mean, all great brands self-select. You go to IKEA, they sell you flat-pack furniture. You have to make it yourself. That might be a bit of aggravation. If that was an advertising agency, we'd all be there saying, no, I'll make it for you, I'll put it up. And we'd completely fuck the brand. So, you've got to have, I mean, one of the things that's so important is you have to have a point of view. And you have to stand for something. And if you don't stand for anything, the client's going to go, well, they're just, just a bit like everybody else. And it just, who knows? And if I like them on the day, it'll be okay. They don't, you win a pitch before the client's walked in through the front door. That's the first thing to say. You're winning the pitch. First of all, because of your work, because they're coming to you. All of our great pitching moments have been when we've kind of, the work has been absolutely at its peak. I mean, we've had, like anybody, there are moments when it goes up and down, and it will happen to everybody. But, our latest great run happened after Yo Valley. When Yo Valley happened, the phone started going. And then you get the confidence, and then you get the, and people smell it. People walk in, they smell it. They smell this is success. I want to be a part of it. So work fundamentally important. Have a point of difference. Believe in something, and talk about it. And say this is what we do. We may not be right for you. What a terrible word to be heard in a phrase to be heard in a new business meeting. We may not be right for you. And of course, if you tell somebody you won't do something, they desperately want you.
You mentioned that you used to address their strategy. So you say, right, we're not going to, it was a double gamble back in those. So you go, we're not going to present creative work, and furthermore, your strategy's wrong. Right?
Well, it was usually that's why they were. Back then in the early '80s, it was often the case. I mean, clients weren't particularly good at strategy. That's why we had planners. That's why planning was so important. And John Bartle was a planner. So we had an advantage in John Bartle. Why was I going to show them something that was very difficult to show? Why was I going to we pitched for Levi's. We were the only agency. I mean, BNP, who were pitching at the time as well, now called DDB, had made a commercial. We almost pulled out of that pitch. We thought, fuck this. I mean, what's the point? 5 agencies pitching. We thought we'd almost pull out, and we didn't. We stayed in there, and we just thought, we'll just tell them what we really think. And it was the best thing we ever did. We really told them what we thought, that they were completely crap. They'd lost their way. They didn't understand what their market was. They were trying to please everybody and focus on what they were great at. And they sat there stunned and amazed, and they gave us the business. And we didn't produce any creative work for that. Just a great bit of and they bought the passion. They bought the passion of what we were sort of saying to them. But
these days, has that changed? You say it was bad then.
Yeah.
You think it's not so much the case now? You think they come in with strategy that is more solid?
I think today is different. I mean, I think, people, when we had to change that point of view. And the other thing too, I think, when you're running an agency, don't confuse principle and practice. A lot of people confuse principle and practice. Principle of BBH was to produce the most outstanding creative work we could produce. That was the principle. The practice to get there was, at one stage, not to present creative work in new business new business presentations. Those things change. The business became more global. We had to talk to an audience that was coming from Asia, from North America, and so and strategy was much better. Clients got better at strategy, so that point of difference, that competitive advantage that we had, sort of diminished somewhat, and so we had to go and create creative work.
There's a lot of talk about swagger and the advertising industry needing to regain their swagger. Your BBH, you've got this amazing hit rate, and you've been going for years with very famous campaigns. So you talk about people, your work speaking for itself, the pitch one before people come to. But what's your advice if you are none of those things and you need to have a brand? It's all too easy to fall into the trap you're talking about trying to pitch for everything, be everything to all men, because you need the business.
Well, you do, but the danger, like everything in life, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, wouldn't it? So, and you've got to have some principles. You've got to sit down and go, why should a client come to us? And I remember, great lesson I learned was when we started TBWA in the UK, and that's where I met John and Nigel, and this was like 74. We weren't being particularly successful. And I remember we were sort of thinking, we're not cracking it, we're not going to. And there was a guy that we'd met who worked for a sports marketer, Mark McCormack's company, and he was a very interesting guy. And the great thing is, this guy could get us into the boardroom of literally any company, because he was in sports marketing, so he had every tennis player, every golfer, every footballer, he had them on his, wasn't speed dial back then, but he had them in his black book. And I always remember, and he was very interested in joining us, and I remember him saying to us, so, okay, guys, I really want this. Now I can get the chairman of Allied Breweries on the phone right now. What's your angle? And we kind of went, well, and we waffled for about 10 minutes. And I could see the interest draining from this guy. I could just see it kind of going, and he was just like, I've got to get this guy on the end of the phone. What am I going to say? You must meet these guys because, blah, blah, blah. Bang. That's what he wanted. And to me, that was one of the greatest lessons I had. What's your angle? What do you believe in? And if you don't, and if you can't do it like that, then it's all over. And you just, and that client's got to walk out going, I either buy that or I don't. And then when you get to pitch, they really want you. They want somebody who's going to do that for them because they think their business needs it. Instead of just being, I'm just going to pitch some advertising. Yes, we need advertising, and nobody's told me why I need it or why I shouldn't have it or what, you know. So it all becomes very, very vague. And then on the day, do they like your receptionist? Do they think your coffee was better? Were you nice? Was it sunny that day? You know. The other great thing, I always remember, John Bartle did a great bit of an analysis, and I know what happens when you pitch. The first thing is, you know, there are sort of 3 agencies pitching or 4 agencies. Everybody wants to be first or everybody wants to be last. Right? There's that big, we've got it, you know, they'll say, got to be last, got to be last, got to be last. Bartle did this analysis of all the pitches that we've been on, where we'd been first, second, third, fourth, last, but there was absolutely no correlation between where we were and winning the pitch. None whatsoever. Wasted energy. You know, all that sort of thing, we've got to be last. Well, there's no point being last if you haven't said anything very interesting.
There is all that stuff, though. There's several legends of the advertising industry about famous pitches where, you know, there was the old one when you must have been at Saatchi's in its very early days where, you know, I think Singer were coming and they tried to fill the office by paying people £5 to come in off the street and fill the desk so it looked busy and thriving even though you had nothing going on. All those stories and the great...
Saatchi's, we never paid anybody. We just got all the, all the photo reps and, you know, people that want to have their portfolios looked at. Didn't pay anybody. Pay them. Oh, get them in for nothing, you know. But I think all those things are bullshit, you know. They're, I mean, you know, those stories sound wonderful and they're legendary. And it was a... you know, I was there at Saatchi's when we did do that. We used to get loads of people in because it was these big offices and clients you have to walk through. But I think that sort of thing is you know, missing the point. The point is, are you really, really interesting as a group of people? And that's fundamentally, that's the thing that you have to focus on. Not all these other things are a waste of time. Because they can piss people off as much as they can excite people. I mean, I remember there was... when we were pitching for Audi, and I can say this now, that the managing director was a man called Michael Heelis. And Michael Heelis was a very interesting man. And he was one of those people, though, that for him, Sunday was sacrosanct. You know, he spent it with his family, that was it. And one of the competing agencies thought, we'll be really smart and we'll turn up on a Sunday and we'll deliver a document to him. And they turned up to his home, went to his home because obviously he wouldn't be in the office, and delivered this document to him. And he was deeply, deeply offended by them turning up on his day off to deliver this document. He crossed them off the list. They thought it was a moment of genius. And you know, it got them off the list. I mean, complete idiots.